Hello, everyone, and welcome to Chasing a Murder. Today is Friday, and guess what? Next week, we have the trial for Charles Vallow. Lori Vallow is going on trial for his alleged murder. She claimed it was self-defense, but we all know that's most likely not true. Because if you know Lori Vallow or you follow this case, Lori Vallow has a very long history of creating problems, making threats, hurting exes, running off with their money when she divorces them. Lori Vallow's been married 5 times, and 2 of those 5 men were attacked by her and her brother Alex Cox. In fact, Joe Ryan died 2018 under very questionable circumstances. They say it was natural causes. Then you have Charles Vallow, 2019, shot twice. Some believe that he was ambushed by the Cox family, and according to Lori, Charles was threatening her, and then she shot him in self-defense. Now, Lori Vallow's already been through one trial where she was found guilty of murdering her own 2 children, Tylee Ryan and J.J. Vallow. Police discovered them actually buried on her lover's property, Chad Daybell, in Idaho. Now, when all this happened, both Lori and Chad were married to their longtime spouses, and months after their children were killed, they killed Chad's wife, Tammy Daybell. And it is believed that Alex Cox was the one who physically took the innocent lives of those 3 people. But Lori made sure to text Chad that he would get these plans going, but in reality, Lori was the one calling the shots, and Lori doesn't do anything Lori doesn't want to do. So who was the true boss in all of this crime? Well, a lot of people suspected it was Chad Daybell, but in my opinion, after researching Lori for 5 years, Lori is the type of woman that won't do anything anyone tells her to do. She's a rebel. Shockingly, Chad got the death penalty instead of Lori, which doesn't make sense, and Lori will spend the rest of her life behind bars, at least in Idaho. But we have waited over 5 years to see the justice for Charles Vallow. This trial is finally coming. Now, Charles was killed in Arizona, and in my opinion, the investigators moved quite slowly and maybe could have prevented more deaths if they had actually took the case more seriously. But then again, how could they have known how crazy this case was? Well, they had ideas. They had people telling them, say, look, something seriously wrong. And I can only thank God that the Idaho investigators were quite quick. Interestingly, Lori has chosen to be her own defense attorney. She's had experience in the past of writing judges and convincing judges that they're very well-rounded people who have their heads on their shoulder that are being misunderstood. And here's just one example of Barry writing a judge during the separation of his oldest daughter, Stacy, and her husband, Steve. Steve had mentioned at one time that he had concerns about his wife at the time, Stacy Cox's mental status. Lori Vallow had written the judge when she and Joe Ryan were in their custody battle after he accused her of having mental issues as well. There's a long history of exes of this family claiming that all these people seem to have mental issues. Lori Vallow's father, Barry Cox, has a history of studying law. Barry has acted as his own attorney on and off over the years, especially during his IRS fight. And as you can see, Lori Vallow basically seems to follow in those footsteps. She seems to think that she's capable of representing herself as her own attorney. And she does have legal paper trails out there stating that she's had some experience dealing with law. but it's nothing like an attorney. It's obvious Lori's representing herself, at least trying to represent herself and act as a professional attorney. She's even had the gall to question the ethics of the state attorney on her case. I don't know if you guys remember, but after she was first arrested, there was a jailmate, Miss Cook, that come forward and said that Lori really was enjoying the spotlight and was amused that she believed that her story was taking precedence over big stories like COVID at the time. So she has a lot of narcissistic behavior that take lead whenever she meets people. I mean, this is something that happens time and time again. It appears that she believes that whatever she's doing is the most important thing to people surrounding her. There's a lot of people in this family that would like you to think that Lori just suddenly become this aggressive woman, and it's because of delusion, and it's after she met Chad Daybell. Well, Lori did the same thing that she did to Charles to Joe Ryan. At one point, she got tired of the marriage. We don't know why. She took him for every penny that he had, claimed that he was abusing the children. Alex Cox was involved with this, and he even asked a friend of his if she would write up something supporting the fact that he was a pornography addict. Now, according to Joe Ryan and court records, Lori Vallow has stalked him, caused him all kinds of pain and suffering, and put him in a huge financial bind, right before she left him, after she left him, and continued to put him in a financial bind um, through court disputes. Not only that, she had also arranged with her brother Alex Cox to attack Joseph Ryan, and they did so with a taser gun. Alex Cox was arrested and spent time in jail for that. While in jail, was writing letters trying to get information on Joe Ryan, where he lived, his license plate, etc. And he was trying to get that information from other fellow Cox members that were outside of the jail. According to several witnesses, the original plan was to tase Joe Ryan, take him out to a secluded place, then take his life and just get rid of the problem. And here we are at the Charles Vallow trial, where Charles Vallow experienced similar attacks. And the interesting thing is, are they going to be able to use Lori's history of what we know in court? Well, most likely not. Lori Vallow had emptied Charles Vallow's bank account with big chunks of money, disappeared over 2 months, maybe even 3 months, abandoned her son JJ completely. At some point, Lori begins to threaten Charles' life. And this is where Lori's mental status comes up once again. According to Adam Cox, he and Charles were trying to get help for Lori, but their other family members were helping Lori and working against them. Charles tried his best to get help from the Gilbert and Chandler police, but they were not listening. It's believed that Charles Vallow was ambushed by Alex and Lori, where he was killed in July of 2019. Shot twice, supposedly, by Alex Cox. Now, whether or not we're going to hear, this is why I'm kind of going over this. I'm wondering if we're going to hear any truths, because I'm going to be honest, Chandler, Gilbert, they were slacking. Alex Cox and Lori Vallow claimed that they shot Charles in self-defense. Investigators, not knowing these people personally, had to investigate and talk to witnesses, in which they did. They talked to the Cox family, which were taken up for Lori. They were making it seem as if Charles was gone off the deep end. And then they would talk to the Woodcocks, which was Charles' sister, where she was telling them, look, something ain't right about this. Charles was warning that she had threatened to murder him. This would be the beginning of a story that seems like it never ends for Kay Woodcock and Larry. And of course, Charles's two other siblings, his two brothers, but Kay Woodcock was the one that was doing a lot of the investigating behind the scenes herself, trying to find the evidence she needed to prove that her brother was not shot because he was the aggressor. He was shot because he was allegedly murdered. Now, while we did get a lot of bits and pieces of evidence, information, um, documents, emails, witnesses that were speaking um, for Tylee and JJ and Tammy Daybell, we only had a few documents on Charles's case. There was a lot of redacted um, documents, and then also the investigators on that case, who seemed to be slacking, were keeping Charles' case under the radar. They were more quiet. Remember, when things really picked up was not when Charles was shot, which you would have thought. It was later, when Kay Woodcock was able to get the Idaho police to do a welfare check on JJ Vallow, her grandson. It was that group of investigators that started to ask more questions. The more questions they asked, the more questions they got, and the more red flags showed. And right now, we're waiting and we're wondering, what is the state going to present? What does she have? And why is it that Colby Ryan's not a witness? We've not heard Melanie Gibb being a witness, or Melanie Boudreau. And guys, I've got some enlightening stuff for you guys when Brandon's case begins. Now, for some reason, Melanie Boudreau, that does play a big part in this group / cult, hasn't had anything, not even a slap on the hand. And you have to ask why. And that's something we're going to talk about shortly. What are we going to see in Charles's trial? Well, they've got their jury picked. That went so quick. Right up Lori's alley. It's mostly men and just a few women. Thinking off the top of my head, I think it's 13 men and 3 women for alternates. A total of 12 jurors in the courtroom. I found that Lori feels most comfortable when she's dealing with men versus women. I've seen a lot of women attorneys throughout these 5 years. Many of them quit. Some of them, we don't know why they disappear. And I think probably her best attorney and companion when it come to causing issues and doing what she wanted was Mark Means. No matter who Lori's team was, she played an active role in her defense. And now she has full control over her defense, so what can we expect? It's very hard to even guess, other than she's going to throw a bunch of nonsense that she thinks is of value, misuse law, statutes, try to use loopholes, of course, try to use the blame game as a way to gain leverage. Now, I truly believe the only reason she got off the death penalty is because her family was good at writing letters to judges and persuading people to see things as they believe them to be. There's no death penalty involved here, and so I'm curious as to who is writing the judge on this trial. Lori Vallow has listed her father, Barry Cox, as a witness. Will he be a witness? Well, I can tell you right now that the state's attorney has tried her best to preclude basically everyone on her list, including Nate Eaton, the reporter who knows nothing about Charles Vallow. He was not there. The only thing he knows is through his research after the fact. Now, we already talked about the fact that when Lori escaped the death penalty, that was more, we were asking for more trouble. And that's the case. So now Lori Vallow believes that she's on a mission behind bars, which we already knew this. I mean, we've talked about it multiple times, but AZ family were they did an interview with her and they were able to actually capture that on video. She begins telling everyone why she's good for everyone in that jail.
Put me here in this jail, the worst jail in the country, they say, and I really can't argue it. But when I got here, the girls are like, "Did you know that you got brought to the worst jail in the country?" And I was like, can't argue that it's not. But he brought me here to help uplift and strengthen these women, and that's what I try to do every day. You know, I'm a certified group fitness instructor, and I worked here at Fitness Works and taught aerobics. And so I teach a workout to the girls every day. We laugh together, we cry together, pray together. We're all in our separate cells. We're in there 23 hours a day. So we just talk to each other through the cell doors, right? Like each of us get out an hour a day and we can talk to each other through the door. We have to take our shower and whatever.
The picture that she's painting in jail seems to be a lot of fun, doesn't it? Sounds like they have all the time in the world to chat, girl talk, and prayers, do exercise. But Lori will make things work however she needs to make herself happy. I expected this already. Earlier in this interview, she asked Lori about her children and what happened, and she was stopped by someone. And they edited out the audio, and so we don't know what was said, but Lori refused to answer any questions on camera. And you can believe that this interview is here for a purpose, for her purpose, whether it works for her or not, most likely to make it seem as if she's making a difference in women's rights in the jail.
Even being convicted of killing them. Wrongly. Mm-hmm. Of course.
Lori believes everyone there is convicted wrongly, and she says she's going to think about taking a stand herself.
We're going to see how it goes. And that would be a situation if you did decide where your investigator or somebody would ask the questions to you on the stand.
So the way this works is Lori has to write out her own questions to herself, and her advisory team will have to ask those questions. Have you guys figured out what her motive is doing all these interviews? My gosh, this jail has just granted her a lot of access to the public. Lori's team can also kick in and take over if they need to. So we're just going to watch and see how things work out. Next, they talk about jury selection.
As a non-attorney, what was that process like for you? That was an interesting process. I mean, it went way better than I thought it was going to go. The process in Idaho is so different. It was interesting for me because it was so different, and I have had that experience. So I was like, I kind of know what's going to happen here. But every state is different, right? Every county is different. Everyone's going to have their own rules of how they did it. I have to say that I was pleasantly surprised that the judge was very fair in doing the jury selection in some ways.
That's an important statement for the future.
Really fast. I didn't expect that. I thought it would take a long time. So I feel like it went as well as it could go. Are you nervous for Monday? See how it goes. I try not to get nervous about things and go with the flow as much as possible. It's not just Monday. It's like, it's every day. It's going to be.
She's not kidding. Every day for 5 years, family have had to suffer thanks to Lori. They have suffered day in and day out, and the quicker this trial goes, the better. Bye-bye spotlight. Lori thinks she has a lot of movie deals and book deals coming up. Think back to the beginning when Lori was first arrested. They were running out of money real quick. And she said, well, I'll give you guys some of my earnings from my books and movies for my bond. The interviewer asked Lori if she will be able to convince the jury. And she says, I don't need to. I'm just here to tell the truth.
Tell the truth. Wouldn't that be your goal, though, as your defense attorney, to be found not guilty? I think that's a goal. Yeah, that's the goal of everybody. But I'm not trying to convince anybody. I'm defending myself against being wrongfully accused.
Okay, guys, let's pretend that she is delusional and that she doesn't understand everything that she's done to people. When she talked to her son Colby and gave him a different excuse, a different idea of what happened between Tylee and JJ, she blamed her own daughter that she claimed that she would do anything for taking the life of JJ. So just remember that when you're watching her. She's very devious, very deceiving, and very cold.
So, wrongfully accused of Charles' death as well. Absolutely. What do you want the jury to take on you during this trial? I don't know that they can take anything away. I mean,
well, she got taken off guard by that question, so she'll need some time to come up with a clever response.
Are you prepared for a life behind bars? Sure. How? What do you do to prepare that to be? My life is mostly over because I'm 51 years old. Some say I'm a mother and a grandmother and all those things. I've had a wonderful life. I did have a wonderful life for, a long time. So it's just a different life,
She's talking to the Lord.
Called on missions to go do things, and I've had this kind of scenario in my mind that
Lori has a new mission. It's no longer with Chad Daybell, but for women who are in prison and who are in jail who are wrongfully accused.
And you're going to help and uplift and strengthen women and give them faith and help them carry on and do these things and help them get ready for when they get out of prison. But you're going to be there all the time and you're going to be there for the rest of your life. Will you accept this calling? So you feel this is kind of a newfound purpose with the situation you're in? Absolutely.
If Lori knows she's going to be there for the rest of her life, then what's the point in fighting? Well, guys, she has an agenda, she has a message, and she still thinks that she has some loopholes she can jump through. And these women in jail have no idea what kind of manipulator that they're dealing with, but in time may find out. Does Lori see herself as this evil manipulator? There's been times that she's made comments that, yes, she does. And then there's times that make you wonder, does she really? Well, she's had no problem manipulating her niece, Melanie Boudreaux, her friends, Melanie Gibb and Zulema, her own brother, Alex Cox. What were the reasons for manipulating all these people, taking the lives of so many people? It was to gain what she wanted, which was power, freedom, riches, relationships, a complete start over on her very limited life. The best advice I can give to anyone that deals with Lori is just listen and let it go through one ear and out the other, because there is not one hint of truth and her true meaning towards you and others. You won't know what it really is. She's very clever when it comes to distractions, manipulating people into believing certain things. She's done it to her entire family, her whole entire life, and it's very sad to see, especially when you go back and you look at all the records with Joe Ryan, Tylee Ryan, Colby Ryan, and then even the men before that. It's just, it's chaos. If she truly cared about her kids as she says she does, she would admit to her wrongs for the benefit of her children, especially Colby. He deserves that truth. Thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you guys soon.